Welcome to the Coaching Table. I'm Thomas Thompson, Executive Leadership Consultant. And the Coaching Table is a weekly conversation I've created to help leaders like you have the conversations that you're not having so you can truly begin to lead yourself well. Because when you lead yourself well, you're going to lead those around you well. Well, today I want to start a series of conversations around the subject, decisive clarity. Decisive clarity. How do we make better decisions? I'm a big fan of reading presidential biographies and memoirs. I just love about the ins and outs of the Oval Office. And what I really like is the leadership lessons, the good and bad that you pick up when you read those. A number of years ago, I got to read Decision Points, the memoir of George W. Bush. What I really liked about that was he did something different. Instead of just walking chronologically through his presidency, he said, I identified 10 decisions that really defined my presidency. And each chapter was one of those decisions, the context, the situation, the different factors, the different choices they could have made, how they debated it, what the conflict was, what they decided, and then kind of what happened with it. And one of his conclusions was that really history is going to be the one to judge whether those decisions were the right ones or not. It really got me thinking about this idea that our decisions define us. That really, that's what we are. Our success or failure in life is really largely in part a result of the decisions we make. And so we want to make better and more clear decisions, and we want to lead our teams to do that as well. So how do we do that? Well, that's what I want to focus on. I want to share with you some keys to decisive clarity. Just some things that I've learned over the last few decades that I've used to help me and the teams I lead make better decisions. And the first key to decisive clarity is this: avoid the iceberg. Imagine that you're the captain of a gigantic ship, let's call it the Titanic, and you look out across the front and you see this giant iceberg ahead of you, and so you know you have to avoid it. You can't stop, you have to move forward. And so you look, what are the options? And the team says, well, we can go left or we can go right. And the navigator says we should go right, and the first officer says no, we need to go left, and the debate ensues, and you end up arguing long enough. What's going to happen? It's going to hit the iceberg. Now, what's happening in that situation is that the captain, you and I, have fallen into a classic decision-making trap called the either-or dilemma. And that is where you define the decision outcome as either A or B. And once you've locked yourself into those two options, it becomes very easy to exclude other possibilities and other things that could solve your problem, and you can tend to end up hitting the iceberg. How do you avoid that iceberg? How do you avoid that dilemma? Let me give you an example. I was working with a client recently who had come to a pretty big decision point in his life about what he really wanted to spend the next 10 to 15 years doing. And he had a great job and he loved in one state, but had recently been offered another job in a different field in another state. And so he was kind of thinking through the idea of what job should I take? The one that I have, option A, or this new one offered to me, option B. And he came to me wanting to solve kind of that dilemma. But as we talked, I realized he was starting to get a little bit down the road of that either or dilemma. And so I said, hey, what if neither job was an option for you? What if you lost the job you had? What if you didn't get the job that's being offered to you? Well, what is it you're really put on this planet to do? What if you figured out that you want to spend the next 10 to 15 years doing? And to his credit, he gave me a super clear, crystallized answer. He said, I want to spend the next 10 to 15 years of my life. And then he said a sentence of power. Wow. I said, so your question really isn't between A and B, because there might be C, D, E, F, or G out there that could help you accomplish that. The real question is, stepping back, what would help me do what I want to do for the next 10, 15 years? What would help me live out this mission I just announced to you? And as he started thinking a little bit bigger than that, it kind of freed his mind up to see the problem from a new perspective. Now, cards on the table, he ended up picking option B. And that's going to be the case most of the time. I think when you get down the road to two options, if you can free yourself up enough, you may return to one of those two. But the difference is you're going to return with a little bit more clarity and decisiveness. And so how do you remove the either or dilemma? How do you avoid the iceberg? You play this thought exercise. What if option A and option B were off the table? What would our decision look like then? That's your coaching table question for this week. If you're facing kind of a two-pronged decision that you're trying to pick between A and B, I'd love for you to take that question into your conversations with God, yourself, or your team, and ask this: if option A and option B were off the table, what would this decision look like? Let it begin to free your creative mind and to begin to look at this problem and really get to the heart of what you want and what the right path is. Well, hey, if you're walking through a tough decision like that, I'd love to hear what you're thinking through, and you can scroll down and send me a quick email. I'd love to have that conversation and just hear what you're up to. And I'll be back next week with another key to decisive clarity. But until then, you're always welcome at the coaching table.